Yesterday, Minnesota's Office of the Legislative Auditor published an audit of the state's Department of Human Services Behavioral Health Administration grants. I'd like to enter that report and its cover letter into the record. Without objection, so ordered. The cover letter of this report states, quote, however, during the course of our audit, we identified a number of documents that the Behavioral Health Administration either backdated or created after our audit happened, end quote. It sounds like Governor Tim Walz's Department of Human Services may have been fabricating evidence by creating documentation after the fact to mislead voters, to mislead auditors. This new report noted that one grantee who received nearly $680,000 from this agency for 1 month's work, but could not provide any documentation or proof that any work was actually completed. What's more, and this is the kicker, the report notes that the grant manager who approved this money left the agency within days of approving the grant to take a job with the very same grantee that they approved money for. So very quickly, Representative Roberts, have you ever seen anything like this in your time as a member of the Minnesota's Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight Policy Committee?
We have heard whistleblower reports of backdating and falsification before, and we also have a record of earlier in the CCAP, the child care fraud, where they would allow the providers to submit records far after the investigation and accept them as true. So clearly this has been a pattern at the agency, and it's unacceptable. Unbelievable.
And we want to work with you. We want to work with these whistleblowers. We're serious about this. The Trump administration's on the ground. We want to catch these people, and we want to put them behind bars, and we want to hold any politician that participated in these schemes accountable. Representative Hudson, who's to blame for this dysfunction?
Well, the blame can go around quite a bit, but as Tim Walz himself said, the buck stops with him.
Representative Robbins, do you have any examples of how the Walz administration blocked investigators from moving forward with high-priority fraud investigations?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chairman. I have met with whistleblowers and gotten documents from them about how after the original CCAP whistleblower report came out in March and April of 2019, subsequent to that, there was an Office of Inspector General within DHS that had investigative authority to do surveillance, warrants, and seize electronics, and they were shut down. They were told they could no longer do criminal investigations. They were told they could no longer meet with the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension agents that were assigned to them without supervisor's approval. And instead, when they found one of the other members talked about how they changed the language. They went from calling it fraud to calling it overbilling. And they created an overbilling committee to all the investigative agents now couldn't do criminal investigations, and they had to flag issues of overbilling, and then a committee would decide if any of that overbilling would be recouped.
Committee appointed by Walz?
No, appointed within DHS.
Oh, appointed by the own bureaucracy.
Yes, so they shut down criminal investigations. They created a committee to call it overbilling and decide if overbilling investigations would even try to recoup the money.
This is evidence that Tim Walz interfered with investigators who knew there was fraud. The rumors of fraud have been taking place. I've been hearing them for a decade, and yet he interfered to try to obstruct their investigation of fraud.
Yes, his agency shut down criminal investigations.
Representative Hudson, we didn't get $9 billion stolen overnight. How did the fraud in Minnesota become so widespread?
Well, listen, let me give the maximum benefit of the doubt that these programs were designed for a beneficial legislative intent.
Of course.
The way that it happened was by when people recognized that the system wasn't working and they raised those concerns were ignored, and a culture suppressing raising those concerns was fostered by the Walz administration.
So obviously there was a lack of oversight by the Walz administration. Why would Governor Walz let $9 billion in fraud occur? Mr. Hudson.
In my opinion, because it was politically beneficial to Democrats. Again, the Somali community is a huge constituency group, and we've had some tight races in Minnesota, and it makes a difference for them.
Because it's a huge part of the Democrat voting base in Minnesota. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, Representative Varick, Governor Walz's announcement not to seek a third term seems to be an admission of guilt. I think, to most Americans, and an attempt by the Democrat establishment to cover up his role in the rampant fraud. He claims this is so he can focus on defending the people of Minnesota against criminals who prey on our generosity. As someone who has been in the Minnesota legislature longer than Tim Walz has been governor, can Governor Walz actually be trusted to defend Minnesotans when he allowed fraud to fester for his entire tenure as governor?
Mr. Chairman, if Governor Walz was serious about stopping fraud, he would have done it in 2019 when he took office. He has done nothing other than appoint commissioners that suppressed fraud and retaliated against their own employees.
And just think, this man was almost elected Vice President of the United States. This was the pick for the sitting Vice President of the United States to be the next Vice President of the United States. This is unbelievable. If people aren't held accountable, if people don't go to jail for this, this will continue, not just in Minnesota, but other states. And we're going to do everything we can on this committee to work with you all and every whistleblower in Minnesota and any other of the 49 states who wants to come forward to